Hi there. So welcome to the first part of our workshop, starting, restarting and kickstarting your belly dance classes. I wanted to take a couple of minutes ahead of time to share with you a blog that I wrote some time back, which is about, are you ready to become a belly dance teacher? I wanted to separate this video out a little bit because you may not be starting over your belly dance classes. You might already be teaching belly dance, or it might be that you've seen my blog before and you don't need me to talk you through it, or it may be that you're happier just reading the blog, in which case the link is going to be below. But if you'd like me to chat to you as we read through the blog together, this is the right video for you. The majority of this workshop is going to be in a different video. So if you were looking for the big body of the workshop, that's not here. It's going to be in another video. So I'm going to share screen and we're going to have a look at this blog. Share screen. Yes, please. Here I am. Oh, and of course I'm in Zoom. Let's go. Here's my website. So this is my website, Let's Belly Dance, LETS Belly Dance, USA.weebly.com, and this is my blog, and I'll probably take you for a quick cruise around the rest of my blogs at the end of this, but this is one of my most popular blogs. This is Are You Ready to Teach Belly Dance? I love this photo at the top. This is a piece of a suit that I literally stole from Dawn Divine. She was taking photos in this beautiful piece of a suit. It is the heaviest a suit you have ever seen, and I said, oh, I just want to handle it. I just want to touch it for a while. And Alicia Westerfeld caught this image of me just being silly with a piece of a suit. So, and then it ended up on my website. So these are some of my lovely students from California. Okay, so yeah, I wrote this blog post partly having done the Teaching Belly Dance book, because I think this whole consideration about are you ready to teach, it swings both ways. There are some people who believe they're ready to teach belly dance having taken a 6-week beginner's course, and there are other people who have been learning for 20 years and are still a little bit hesitant about teaching. Like every single industry, every dance form, every subject, we need quality teachers. And so assessing yourself and saying, am I good enough, can be super tough, and I get that totally. So what I wanted to do in this blog post was say, okay, are you good enough? And if you're not good enough, how can you make yourself good enough? Because I think if we have a little tick sheet of things to work through and say, I will be a really good teacher when I can tick these boxes, that's probably a good start. So obviously I'm going to recommend my books. I would be silly not to, but beyond just that, the books, here are a few other things you can do. And a lot of us fall into teaching in different ways. I was one of those people who loved doing classes with my teacher, and then my teacher moved away. I was lucky enough that I had about a year's notice, so I did some teacher training, got some qualifications in, and was prepared to take over those classes when my teacher left. Some other people don't get that notice, or they find that they are interested in a dance style that nobody in their local area is teaching, or there might not be a single teacher in your area and you need to fill that gap. Or it might be a change in your family circumstances, a need to earn money. You might find that although there's an amazing belly dance teacher in town, they don't do daytime classes, or they're not covering the local gyms. So there is always a gap in the market for more teachers. So we're looking for quality teachers. And this is just a little bit of a checklist to see if this is you. So let's have a look down at this list. And we're going to start here with how good are your basic skills? This is one of those things where we don't know we're not good at something until it gets reflected back at us. So you have seen that dance troupe or that class group where not a single one of them can do a shimmy. And you know none of them can do a shimmy because their teacher can't shimmy. And you just kind of like, how has nobody told any of these people that they can't shimmy? Yeah, they might be those shimmiers that have to use their arms. And that goes for all different kinds of moves. None of us are amazing at every single move. However, the moment you stand in front of a class, they start to reflect your skills back at you. So if your horizontal rotation is a little bit off kilter, you will look at your class and go, why is nobody doing a level horizontal rotation? And it will be because you are not doing one. So that might be that you didn't learn very well in the first place, or that you've got bad habits over the years. A lot of us are in a big hurry to get to the fancy moves and the clever things. You know, you might not be able to do a horizontal rotation, but you could do like a 15 layered something or other else going on. So it's time to take a quick assessment of your core basic skills. So if you will be teaching it to beginners, it needs to be perfect on your body, and you need to understand how it's perfect on your body. So I'm going to suggest, and fair few people have done this with me already, go back to a beginner's class, or take a workshop, a beginner's workshop, or take some private lessons with a teacher that you really respect and who understands how movements are powered and where they're based, and literally go through all the basics, asking for fine detail correction. You know, you look at yourself in the mirror and maybe you see some of the faults and maybe you don't see other faults. You're going to ask to have your posture corrected constantly, and to think about weight shifts and all that kind of thing, levels, size, strength, where things are coming from. So it's a really good idea to get back to your basics, make sure your basic belly dance moves that you're going to teach your beginner students are absolutely perfect. There's zero shame in going back to your old teacher's beginner classes. And if you go in and explain to them what you're doing, you'll get a different level of correction than you did the first time round. I spent about a year, 18 months going back to beginner workshops, which meant that I got to meet a whole load of teachers. Some of them made amazing corrections. Some of them didn't have such great corrections for me and things, but it really helped me focus in on who was giving me the kind of corrections that made a difference to my dance. So this, unfortunately, is one of those things that you can't really do on video, because you need a hands-on teacher to make those corrections on you in person. So yeah, that's my first tip. Make sure your basic tips are really, really good. Basic skills. It was a tip. Confused. Okay, so now let's talk about teaching to all the different learning styles. A lot of people teach in the way that they learn. By that I mean, if your teacher, let's say when you were doing a figure eight, waved their fingers around, then you are likely to teach by waving your fingers around, because that's how you understood it. It's how you got the message into your body, and that worked for you. So why wouldn't it work for someone else? Well, we all need different kinds of teaching. We all have different learning styles. There's lots of amazing resources out there about learning styles. And I think it's fascinating, and I think you should go out and do some research on learning styles. But let me just talk through some of the ways I have defined learning styles. Again, there's more about this in the Teaching Belly Dance book. But I split students up thinking about dance into a number of different groups. So we have the visual learner. Those people are super lucky. They're the ones that can dance in a follow the bouncing butt class. So they watch someone and they can just do it. So those people work great with videos. They tend to stand right behind the teacher, because they want left and right and traveling distances to be visual to them. Sometimes they need to see in the mirror. Sometimes they need to see the back of the teacher. But they copy, parrot what they see. Now, one of the disadvantages of that is very often they don't know what they don't see. So if there's a nuance in the move and they don't see it in the moment, they don't do it. So advantages and disadvantages for the visual learner. The audio learner is the person who likes things to be explained to them. Some of those people are 8-count people. We've all known teachers who, if you just recorded them and fast forwarded it, they would just count to 8 over and over and over and over and over again. And that's a way of learning and a way of explaining, keeping people on the beat. Some audio dancers need to hear an explanation. And that might be that counting, that very scientific way of listening to music as a count. And that might be a story that they need to be told. So they might need things explained in a very storytelling kind of way. The verbal learner is the person that nobody likes in the class, because the verbal learner is the one that has to say it all out loud back at you. So let me give you an example of how a conversation goes in class with a verbal learner. So I will say to the verbal learners and the rest of the class, we're going to do a new move now. It's called camel. And they will go, oh, camel. And they'll answer you back. You go, so this move is going to be isolated. We're going to do it in the lower half of the body. And they will go, lower half of the body. And echo it back at you. When you're counting to 8, they will also be counting to 8. It might also be that when you stop counting to 8, they keep going. And so, for example, with a camel, I tend to say forward, up, back, down, forward, up, back, down, as I'm explaining it to people, and they might mouth that or keep saying it even after you finish saying it. So they can irritate other people in class, but how they are moving the information through their mind into their body is they are verbalizing it outwards so that it can be absorbed into their body. So it's a learning style. You definitely want to make sure that the verbal learner stops that by the time they get on stage. You know, the dancers who have to count as they're performing, that's part of where that comes from. You can move verbal learners into singing the lyrics. And that's a super great tip if you have somebody who has to verbalize in class, or you're a person who has to verbalize as you're learning. Get them to switch over to the lyrics. That's much more suitable for performances. Okay, then we have the logical learner. Logical learner kind of comes at things as a bit of a scientist, and they will have a process in their head. So some logical learners like to start with the feet and move their way up, and other people like to start with the hips. So, for example, if you have a logical learner and you're saying, okay, in our choreography, we are going to move around the room like a flock of birds, they're going to say, right foot or left foot? And you're going to go, I wasn't really thinking. And they were like, okay, how many steps? Like, well, no, however many steps it takes you to get there. Oh, well, will that be 6 or 8? So they're very logical. They need definite rules, and to have things explained to them, broken down, and then that has to be the same each time. So you can't say you're going to take 6 steps to get to the front and then go, oh, well, if it takes you 8, it takes you 8. They won't like that. So logical learners need to have some rules in place and to be able to reinforce the same rules over and over again. Physical learners need to actually move in order to learn things. This is one of the reasons why sometimes we have to allow people to touch our bodies. So for example, a shoulder roll, if you can put their hands on your shoulders, they will get it because they feel the physical movement. You might have to physically move them. So take their hand and put it somewhere, that kind of thing. We obviously have to be careful about touching people and ask permission ahead of time before we touch people. Once they have physically gone through the process and got a move, then it will stay in their mind. But all the time you're standing explaining something before we start moving, that's driving them potty because they would rather already be moving. So that's our physical learner. And then I've also listed the emotional learner. Emotional learners are some of the most beautiful dancers, and you'll know them once you start looking at how people learn in different learning styles. Then you'll see people in your workshops or see people performing, and you'll know what kind of learner they are. Emotional learners ignore all those things I just said. So they're probably not watching, they're not counting, they're not being logical, they maybe aren't even listening to what you're telling them to do. But what they are is they're making an emotional connection to the move or to the music. So those are the people who just dance when the music starts. And you look at them and go, I haven't even told them how to do that move yet. And yeah, there they are doing it beautifully because the music is telling them how to do it. They might need little stories about why we're doing things. They're going to love the history of belly dance. They're going to love watching videos and music with lyrics that tell a story. So that's how we're going to grab those people, is we're going to tell them that this is a love song, and you'll just watch them and go, well, I can see that they know it's a love song. The love is oozing out of them. Beautiful to see. So in your class, you are probably going to have a scattering of those people. And the thing to remember is not everyone learns in the same way, week to week and subject to subject. So you might have someone who is very visual when they're learning a shimmy and then needs to be super logical about a snake arm. So never go, oh, I know exactly how all these people are going to learn, because you won't. They will change from week to week and move to move and concept to concept. So the best thing we can do is to try and teach to all these different learning styles. So that's my next tip. Do some work about learning styles, have a think about how you teach, what your favorite learning styles are, and then work out how to increase the number of learning styles that you're teaching to. Again, in my book, I go into much more detail of this, and I actually do, I think it's like 4 or 5 pages of a script to show you how to teach a move in class using all those different learning styles. Okay. Next one, do you understand the importance of a good warm-up and a good cool-down? Yes. Again, it's good to go away and do some research, your own research, and come up with your own best practice. We're really lucky in the world of belly dance right now that there are a number of great teachers who are working on this and making big improvements. One of the issues I think the belly dance world has is that a lot of people teach in isolation. And by that, I mean they teach exactly what their teacher taught, who teaches exactly what their teacher taught. So if you think back to, I don't know, like the 70s and 80s, when Keep Fit classes were at their heights, thinking about Lycra and Jane Fonda and all that kind of thing, a lot of things that happened in those Keep Fit classes have now been discussed in more detail or are considered not best practice. So there are some things that they used to do and I used to do in my Lycra, jumping around and leg warmers and all that kind of thing, that now we appreciate can cause injuries or can have long-term issues or are just not the best way to warm up and cool down. Now, the problem we might have in some of the belly dance circles is that the people who were teaching in the 70s taught people like me who were learning in the 90s and then teaching in the noughties. And then I've been teaching people who started to teach in their teens. And so we have some belly dance teachers who are still doing things that are now considered not best practice because they inherited from their teachers who inherited from their teachers, and we've all been doing the same thing. And that's not to knock them. I think right now we have so much access to the internet and so much access to other people's teaching that it's super easy to check out other people's warm-ups and maybe even ask them, why do they do that warm-up? What is the best practice about that? Warming up and cooling down is slightly different for belly dance, but all fitness activities still want to warm up and cool down before and after, obviously. And so thinking about what muscles we use and what level of energy we are using in our classes. You know, we don't need to have the same warm-up as a shot putter who is working just on one arm in a repetitive movement. We don't need to be thinking about what sprinters need, but think about long distance runners, you know, people who run for about an hour, that kind of thing. So picking out the best practice from other people who do similar activities to us, other dance styles, other fitness activities. Just do your own research so that you are not continuing with bad practices. Okay, so importance of a good warm up and cool down. And of course, everybody should be warming up and cooling down. One of the other issues is, where are you teaching? Because if you are teaching and people have walked through snow, that's going to be different for me teaching in the summer in Arizona when people have driven through 110 degrees. So thinking about you and your students, your venue, how long you have with them, their level of expertise and their level of energy. You know, are you going to make them sweat, or are you doing a little bit of wafting around? You know, get the right warm up and cool down for your class. Okay, let me have a mouthful of tea because I'm talking too much. Nice tea. Very English, drink my tea. Okay, do you have enough material to teach for a whole semester or term? I'm also thinking, like, do you have enough material to teach for the next 20 years? Because that's what we want to do. We want to have a nice long belly dance teaching career. So this is a little bit about assessing your own knowledge, your own expertise, and thinking about how to break it down. This is one of the things I go into much more detail in the 52 lesson plans workbook. But what I don't want you to do is to take everything you know and throw it at your students in the first 3 weeks and then go, I have nothing else to teach. This is why lesson planning, semester planning, even annual planning is so good, because what we want to do is we want to take our students and we want to develop them. We want to give them enough information to keep them interested, but not so much information we're overwhelming them. We want to take the skills that they have and keep building on them as we go through. And so that at the end of a year, they are better than they were before. 5 years later, they're even better. 10 years later, they're really good. And you're working with each individual student. And of course, you might have a class of 10, 20, 30 people. So we need to be developing all those individuals who all have a different speed of learning, different abilities, different interests. And so that's why planning is so important, to give people enough to keep them interested, but also keep them coming back for more. So yes, thinking about how you keep all your lessons interesting, stimulating, exciting for people. Do you have a good selection of music to keep your students interested in? Yeah. As a performing belly dancer or as a belly dance student, you might have only been purchasing music that you like, and that's great. It's always good when we teach music that we like, but now is the time before you start teaching to expand your music collection. If you're going to be teaching about a particular style, obviously you need more music in that style. But I also think that it's important to introduce people to a wider range of music. So for example, if you are teaching Taksim, you probably want examples of ney, saxophone, violin, oud, just so that you can literally go, can you hear this instrument? It's different to my favorite 4 pieces of music. You know, before I was teaching, I never owned any mizmar, anything with any mizmar, because it's mizmar. But now it's part of the education for all of my students to be able to hear those musical instruments. You might be, say, teaching Saidi and be super into folkloric music, but you should still have a few pop songs that have that Saidi sound in them, so that you can say to people, can you still hear it? Could you still dance to it? How far away have we wandered from the folk music that you are used to and like? So it's about always having a song that you can pull whenever anyone asks a question, or to develop people's musical taste. You know, if you are one of those dark fusion teachers and you really love dark music, think about what level of dark your general student is going to like. You know, they might be fine with 3 or 4 tracks and then want something cheerful to end the cool down, or might want music from different parts of the world to break up. Basically, not everyone has the same musical taste as us. And so we should be, if you want everyone to love one of your pieces of music in your class, you're going to have to play 12 very different songs in order to get, you know, something for everyone. So work on expanding their musical taste by expanding your musical taste. Okay, so yes, catalog your music, find out what you don't have, fill those gaps. How is your fitness? Right, this is going to be really tough when we go back to in-person classes. I know one thing I'm doing is I'm going for a walk for an hour or so every day, just to try and keep my fitness up. Teaching and dancing is another level of fitness from just dancing. So if you've been going to classes for years and you never break a sweat, now try talking the whole time. So move to, instead of practicing a choreography, practice a choreography while calling it, while saying it out loud. Even if that is counting to 8, keep the momentum going. I want you to be able to talk for that 3-4 minutes all the way through while dancing, explaining where your hands are going, where your head's going, where the rest of your body's going. When you work on your warm-up, you probably need to be able to talk straight after your warm-up, because that gap after warm-up before you start on your next skill is usually the most talkative time in your class. So make sure you can do your warm-up. My warm-up is about 10 minutes long, and then go straight into a conversation without your chest heaving or needing to catch your breath, have a mouthful of water. So check your fitness level and make sure that you are fit enough to dance for a whole hour or 90 minutes. I think personally, as a teacher, and again, as somebody in their 50s, I don't need to dance for the whole hour of my classes, because I'm going to go around and check people, I'm going to make corrections, I'm going to be talking to people, I need to stand back and check what they're doing. But there will always be a class where you're just like, okay, and again, and again, and again. So make sure you can do any choreography that you're teaching 10 times without a break. Check on your fitness. Okay, do you have insurance? This one's super important. The question isn't, do you have insurance? But yes, you should have insurance. Have you sorted it out yet? Never get into a teaching situation where you're not insured. Insurance is super easy to sort out. You do need it. It doesn't matter who you're teaching for, whether you're teaching at a dance school, whether you're employed, self-employed, whatever. Get your insurance, get it to cover you. I use K&K insurance because I hate telephones and I like to do things on the internet. So K&K let you fill in a form online. It goes through, they process it, they send it back, and you're insured for the year. Or I think I can be insured for 2-year blocks. You can name additional venues, and that's super easy to add. So if you start teaching at a new venue, you just message them, they add that. I think there's like a $10 fee for doing that, but it's super easy to sort out. Think about what insurance you need. You need insurance that keeps you safe from any issues that might happen to any of your students under any of those circumstances. So if you are putting on events, you will need event insurance. If you take a performance troupe out to dance at other events, think about how are you covered for that. So not just your teaching, but everything else that goes with your teaching. So talk to an insurance broker, visit K&K, which is my recommendation, get your insurance sorted out. Obviously, different countries are going to have different rules and different ideas about what insurance should be, but you should have insurance. I'm also going to talk a little bit about waivers You should have waivers. Make sure somebody signs a waiver before they take any class with you. Again, my Teaching Belly Dance book has at least one, if not a couple, of waivers that you are more than welcome to just straight out copy to cover yourself. Some dance studios and other venues may have their own waiver that they want you to sign. Think about if you want to have your own waiver in addition to that one. There's nothing to say people can't sign 2 waivers when they come to your class. So consider that, but I've put down insurance. Have you picked the right venue? This is something we're going to talk about a little bit more in the main part of our workshop. But looking at your venue from the point of view of a new student, is it easy to get to? Is it warm and inviting? Does it look pretty? You know, nobody wants to go into the smelly gym place to do belly dance. Is the car park bright and safe? Is it near public transport? Is the door marked with the address? Simple things like that. You don't want to get people all the way to your belly dance class only to have them decide not to come in at the very last minute. So have a look at your venue and look at it through fresh eyes and say, is this somewhere I would like to learn belly dance? Will you have enough students? We're really going to go into depth on this, into the main body of the workshop. It's always scary to think about starting a new business. I hate to call students and dancers customers, but that's what they are. Every small business struggles to get new customers. And so one thing you might have to consider is, can you support your business for maybe 6 months or a year until you have enough students? But we're going to talk about how to get more students, how to make sure the right people are coming in. These days with everything online, it's super easy to find people, and then we want to really nurture them. We want to look after them. So don't think of them as just a number, think of them as a person, as a potential belly dancer. Talk to them, find out what they need, what they want, and give them those things. And finally, this very last one. Oh, there's me in a video at the bottom with long hair. So this is the question. Do you love belly dance enough to go out every night in the cold and the rain? I have been teaching belly dance now for 21 years. I still love it. I still get excited at the idea of a new class of beginners. I used to teach 12 classes a week, which sometimes meant that I was teaching a hip rotation maybe 3 times, or maybe like 6 times in a fortnight. And you have to keep thinking, how do I say this in a new way? How do I make it feel fresh and exciting? Are you going to get tired of this job? Is it going to take the joy of belly dance out of it for you? We see that sometimes, people who love belly dance but hate teaching. It's not for everyone. You don't have to become a teacher just because you're good at belly dancing. Teaching and dancing are 2 separate skills, and what we really need is we need people who are good at both. You don't have to be excellent. I'm not the best belly dancer in the world. I am a very enthusiastic teacher. So when people come to my classes, they are going to get excitement. They are going to get my personal interest in them. I want them to be the best belly dancer ever. In fact, some of my students have gone on to be professional dancers. A number of my students have gone on to become teachers. Some people have toured, gone on some of those big international touring belly dance events. A lot of my students are better than me, which is amazing and so exciting. There's a couple of dancers that I see performing videos and on social media. I'm like, I can remember when they were a baby belly dancer in my classes. And every new class you get, you're going to look around and go, where will these people be in 20 years? Giving them that excitement, it's such a gift. It's such a wonderful thing to be able to do. And I want you to have that too. So have a little bit of a time and go, is this going to take the joy out of belly dance for me? Or is my joy so contagious that I should be passing it on to the next generation? So a fair few things for you to consider. I will stop sharing the screen. You can read that blog anytime you want. The link is below. It's been around for a little while. I've tweaked it a few times. But that's what I'd like you to consider if you're not yet a belly dance teacher. Are you ready to become a teacher? Is this the best job for you? Is this the best role for you? If you have any questions, as usual, you can message me. Let's Belly Dance, LETS, bellydance@hotmail.com, or you can find my website, which is letsbellydanceusa.com, or I am on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the places. Don't hesitate to ask me any questions. I've just recommended 2 of my books, Teaching Belly Dance and 52 Lesson Plans and How to Write 5,000 More, which you can get through my website or through Amazon. Never feel like you have to come and get things direct from me if Amazon is easier for you. There's a number of advantages to Amazon. And I know some people are kind of like, oh, well, I'd rather support you. Amazon supports me too, so don't worry about trying to make things difficult if you just want to get things through Amazon. So that's what we need to think about before we start teaching belly dance. I hope that's been useful for you, and I hope you will hop on to the next video and we can talk a little bit more about kickstarting and restarting your classes, getting more students, getting more engaged students. So I'll see you later.